Hi, it's Sydney, your host of Metabolism Diaries, a podcast where we ask people about their GLP-1 journeys and learn the good, the bad, the ugly, and so that we can create this community and do it together. Today's guest is Karlie. I'm so excited to have her on. I met Karlie on Instagram. You guys should go check out her handle, journey_with_Karlie. And she's here to tell us about her GLP-1 journey. So let's get into it. First of all, Karlie, welcome to Metabolism Diaries. I first want to start with how you started posting about your GLP-1 journey.
Sure. Yeah. I did not come into this journey thinking it was going to be what it was. I actually started this journey online as a personal, almost diary. So I could track my weigh ins each week and see my progress because this was the first time that I was doing something for myself that I considered more, if you want to use the word drastic, or more asking for help from an outside avenue. And so I thought if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to do it. And I want to be able to go back and compare weeks or maybe see what happened. And then just naturally, people kept reaching out to me about questions of my journey. And I realized that there's such a big community out there that, you know, so many of us, we don't realize that maybe our neighbor's on a GLP-1, maybe the soccer mom that you were sitting next to is, but they didn't say it. So it's very easy to feel alone. And so this was my way of helping connect other people, even if it's from afar.
That makes so much sense. And yeah, like likewise, like when I started talking about like this podcast and how, amazing I think all these journeys are. And then you start with coworkers and everyone has their own story and each one is so different and special. And I think there's a lot that the rest of the world doesn't know about people who are on GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And then can you tell me how much weight you've lost and since when did you start it?
Yeah. I've been on a GLP-1 for about 16 months now.
Okay.
And I kind of fluctuate between around 82 to 85 pounds, depending on the day, of course. But that's kind of where I've stabilized right now.
Can you talk about when you started a GLP-1? Did you think that was gonna happen? Or did you think it was kinda like you saw other people and, like, you're like, "It's not gonna happen for me," kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I felt how most people probably feel when they first started GLP-1 is kind of skeptical, maybe a little bit hopeless. Okay, we'll see if this works, but I'm not really sure. So no, I did not think this was going to be me. I had seen, influencers online that have lost 80 to 100 pounds in a year. And I thought, okay, like, maybe that's because they were being extreme. So for
Yeah.
me to have walked through that myself, it is a little bit crazy. Because no, I did not think I would be me. That would be me.
Definitely. It's the first time, like, in, the world, I think I saw you posted about juice cleanses and you had done stuff like that. Everyone can resonate with that, and it's the first time it's like, "Oh, you could take this medicine and it really might, quiet that food noise and change your relationship with food." So, it's really incredible. Was there a moment when you decided that you were gonna take a GLP-1, and what did that journey to going to the doctor and everything look like?
Great question. So I have always been somebody who has been into the health and fitness industry, even for my career. So I had the information, the knowledge of how to eat healthy. I mean, I was a group fitness instructor. I
Amazing.
taught military members. I literally taught them how to do certain movements.
Wow.
So I knew what to do. There was just something that was blocking me. I was always the larger girl in the room. I've always been somebody who has done the right things, but not necessarily seen the same success.
Yeah.
So after having kids and things like that, life happened. And with a combination, I think, of hormones and things, essentially my blood pressure started going up for the first time in my life. And my lab work came back very poor.
Okay.
And my doctor who knows me and knows my lifestyle and has seen me had been recommending a GLP-1 for over a year. And I had too much shame, too much guilt, too much, if I just do this more, then I can figure it out. I'll do it myself. I can figure this out. I have the means to figure this out. And I could not. So once that lab work came back and I had to go up again in my blood pressure medicine, I was like, this is a wake up call. And then on top of that, I had a physical job and my body couldn't keep up with it anymore and I ended up having back surgery. And I don't know how much that is tied to it, but I'm a big believer that, the pressure and the inflammation of my weight definitely contributed to that, and so I just knew if I was continuing in the way that my body and my life were trending, that this was not going to be good for myself or my family. So, kind of multifaceted, but a couple big things all within the same year led me to that.
That makes sense, and it's a scary thing to start, and
Mhm.
once you start it, it kind of doesn't feel as scary. It's just
Right.
another medicine, and I think, like, because it's I heard someone say actually this was one of the most impactful things, like, if you have anxiety, you can take anti-anxiety meds, or if you have high blood pressure, you take high blood pressure meds, and it's really very similar, but there is stigma around it, but the way that you just described it is so perfect, so, thank you.
Yeah. And along with that being said, 20 years ago, when we looked at the disease of alcoholism as
Yeah.
a culture, there was a lot of stigma with that as well. Like, well, why
Mhm.
can't you just stop drinking? And now we have recognized that it is a disease. There are genetic factors in there. And I do think that now that obesity is classified as a chronic illness and a disease of obesity, I think that I'm interested to see, especially with GLP-1s coming out in 10, 20 years, will that stigma be less? Is it I'm very curious to see how we treat that as a culture.
That's why, like, you and people who are sharing their stories online, it is so impactful and leading the way because
Yeah.
it will be. Everything kind of starts with stigma when you think about it, and then it changes. And even like when you open the conversation with a coworker or someone else like that, and I don't know, for me at least, that's the way I bond with people and I can relate with friends and all of that. People who are who are listening to this podcast, some are on GLP-1, some are thinking about it, some are just curious. We've heard a lot about food noise. Can you describe what
Mhm.
it really is not to feel that? And
Mhm.
also, I did see on your TikTok video that the French news interviewed you about food noise. I want to hear about that as well, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, food noise, how I like to describe as an example for people, if you take a potluck, let's say you're going to potluck with a friend, and what food noise looks like for people who maybe haven't experienced it or you're experiencing it and didn't know it was a thing. It's an obsessive compulsion about food, eating, overwhelming thoughts that you don't even maybe realize are taking as much space up in your brain as you would think. So, if you're going to a potluck, right, you're thinking, okay, what am I going to bring to the potluck? Should it be healthy? Should it not? If it's healthy, are they going to be like, the bigger girl's bringing the healthy? Or is it, if it's negative or a negative, like maybe a less healthy dish, are you going to feel judged for that? Are you thinking, oh, I can't bring that because then people will think it's because the bigger girl brought it? Okay, but now I'm going to go to the potluck. Am I going to be hungry? Should I eat before I go to the potluck? Okay, no, I'm not going to have anything. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. So you go to the potluck and then you have a dish, but you don't go first because you're the bigger girl. You don't want to go first. So then you're like, okay, I had a little bit of each thing. I'm still hungry, but nope, I don't want to go back in front of people or maybe on the side because I don't want them to think I'm just eating too much and that's why she's bigger. And so those are the types of thoughts you have. And that can even continue to your way home, what you're thinking about. If you're eating, are you going to have a snack? What leftovers are in your fridge? It can, there's a different span, I think, for each person. But essentially, it's you all of a sudden, you don't have that. And some of the medications, depending on which one you're on, help a little bit more, I think, with that. But either way, there is a sense where you can now go to a potluck, bring what you want, eat till you're full, satisfied, and walk away.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. You always look at that friend when you're at like a group dinner, not that you should be comparing yourself, but you can just stop when they feel full. And I'm like, stop
Yeah.
when you feel full? I'm like, I'm always full. Like, what?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then did the French news, how did that happen?
They came to my house and they interviewed me and filmed me, which was really fun and interesting. Um, yeah, and they cover world news, but GLP-1s in Europe, especially in France, have a very different stigma. Even I would say it's harder in France than it is here, but it is emerging. So it was very unique and exciting to try to explain to them what that looked like,
Definitely.
and I actually lived overseas for a while in Europe, and
Okay.
so the lifestyle there is very different, the food is very different,
Yeah,
but the culture does revolve around food. I mean, I think every culture revolves around food in some way, but it was really interesting trying to explain to them, what that looks like. So hopefully it helps and
I'm
hopefully
sure.
people who have never I didn't realize I had food noise until I came online and heard that term. I did
Yeah.
not know what it was. So
That makes sense. So you said you were always in the fitness industry and working out. It wasn't that you weren't trying, you know?
yeah, absolutely. So I grew up, I mean, I've always been obese, even as some of my earliest memories are being bullied in elementary school because I was overweight. And my parents really encouraged me, they're very active. So they capitalized. I liked swimming. I joined a swim team. And I did see, that was healthy for my body. I did see some, but again, and it kind of catapulted me into the sport world. So I was a runner. I ran cross country in high school, in track throughout high school, and then even into college. My freshman year, I ran cross country and track. And then after that, I just did recreational sports all the time. And then that ended up making me realize for my career that I wanted to plan events for fitness events. So I planned 5Ks and triathlons and things like that. And then fast forward, I ended up training the military members for active duty. So I would show them the movements. I went to professional trainings from the top professionals in the world. They teach NFL players. I was teaching them nutrition classes, also the families of the military members. So their kids, spouses. I had the knowledge, had the information. I was doing it. But then again, I just never saw the same results.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really common. I think a lot of people struggle with that assumption that just because you don't maybe look the same as somebody who is in a thinner body, that you're not strong, that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not trying hard enough. And that is so far from it, but it can get in your head and you can get discouraged. And so I think until, my insulin resistance and I have PCOS as well, until that was actually addressed, it didn't really matter what I was doing. I was going to be climbing this uphill battle the whole time.
Yeah. That makes so much sense.
Mhm.
And so you do have PCOS, and has it helped with that? Because I've seen a lot online, people with PCOS are taking GLP-1s now to help with some of the side effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, my insulin resistance has definitely, that's like the root for a lot of things. I've known I've had that for a long time. My doctor's been telling me that. But again, you can try, since some people, they are able to do different natural things. I have friends who have started on a GLP-1 and they have transitioned off, but they have drastically changed their lifestyle. They have drastically changed their supplements. But I would say for the majority of us who are on this, either with the disease of obesity or PCOS, it's probably going to be a lifelong medication with, and maybe not for everyone, but people ask me all the time, are you going to get off this? What's your plan? And I say, I take it day by day. I don't know, but that's too overwhelming for me to think of that. So I know right now it's working and that's where I'm going to continue to go.
And can you tell us what type of GLP-1 you are on and if you've been on different ones?
I've only been on Zepbound. I'm on currently, so I would say on average, I usually have stayed at each dose, with the exception of the first month. I've
Mhm.
usually been on each dose for at least 3 to 4 months each. So I'm currently at 12.5. So I haven't maxed out quite yet.
And what is the max? Do you know?
15 milligrams if you're
Okay.
on Zepbound. Yep.
And what I saw you were made a cool video about some of the side effects of GLP-1s and how you counteract them. I want to start with hair loss because I think it's actually the video that I discovered you when you were in the shower and you were showing how much hair you've lost. And
Mhm.
I've learned that you don't actually lose hair from the drug, you lose it because you're losing a lot of weight rapidly. So can you talk a little bit about what that journey has looked like?
Sure. So from the beginning, I had watched other influencers on here, asked them questions. Seems to be a hot topic, but just recently, this past week, Eli Lilly is actually putting hair loss on as a side effect on the label. So
Wow.
that's a big deal
Okay.
because they're not specifically, again, like you just said to your point, everyone kind of has a little bit of a different opinion on this, but essentially, yes, I have had hair loss that started not until I was about halfway through my journey. At about 40 pounds lost is when I started to notice it, and then it kind of came quickly. I will say it has slowed down a little bit now that my weight has plateaued and I have not lost a significant amount. It typically was when I would go on a dose increase and I started losing again, and then it would pick up, and then it kinda stopped. So I know everyone's very different. It's a very individualized question because everyone's body is so different. But yes, I would say I probably have lost at least a third of my hair. I was lucky that my hair was very thick
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like,
beforehand.
I can't I mean, I don't know what
I
your hair
know you
looked like
can't
before, but it
tell.
looks great,
Even
so
my provider no, even my provider this past week was like, "Yeah, I can tell you've lost a lot of hair."
yeah.
So I will say you can do everything you can, I would say from the beginning, starting at looking at whatever supplements you and your doctor, decide are best. For me, it was definitely getting enough calories and enough protein.
Protein help counteract hair loss. And
Well,
how
yeah, yeah.
and that makes sense, and how about supplements? Are there any specific supplements your doctor recommended or something that you're taking daily to help counteract these side effects?
Yes. So first and foremost, some multivitamin because maybe now that you're not eating as much, you're not getting as the whole variety of vitamins for
Yeah,
your body. So that's a way that your body might be like, hey, what's going on? So a multivitamin, and then I take a biotin supplement as well. Those are the things that I'm taking. Also, I'm going to start some serums for my hair, like a topical serum. I've heard good things about that.
yeah,
But yeah, I think again, it's a normal part of I mean, you can lose hair when you go through surgery. You can lose hair when you go through a big life change, when you're really stressed. It's your body's reaction, to not being at a like
yeah,
a homeostasis. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would take that though. Like people ask me that all the time. Is it worth it?
Yeah,
For me, it's worth it because of all the positives that I now have in my life, like, I'll take hair loss, we can get extensions, it's not the worst case scenario. You're not gonna I haven't seen a single person online anywhere, I mean, at least not me, I've not seen anyone go bald.
yeah,
Definitely hair loss, definitely hair thinning, definitely maybe a little bit of patchiness, but I haven't seen anyone completely lose all of their hair, so,
yeah.
yeah.
And then can you talk about some of the other side effects that you've experienced from GLP-1?
Sure, and I think I'm a big proponent of yes, everyone's individual, but I'm a very big proponent that if you are fueling your body correctly, I don't think you're gonna have as many side effects, especially the further in that you get in your journey and the more that your body gets used to the medication. So, for me at the beginning was when I saw the most side effects,
Okay.
and what that looked like was usually my 2nd week of titrating up in a dose. So when I went from 2.5 to 5 and then 5 to 7.5, the 2nd week of those, was usually when I saw the most. The worst I ever had was from, going from 2.5 to 5 in the 2nd week, and there was 3 days where I just had really bad, stomach issues, and
Okay.
that was it. Aside from that, the only time I've gotten nauseous in this whole thing is if I don't eat enough. Like, let's say I'm on the go and I'm running around, and all of a sudden I notice, "Oh, okay, I'm kinda getting a little nauseous," but that was at the beginning. Now what that looks like for me is my blood sugar gets low, and I kind of get like low energy, some headaches, but I feel like no matter what, if you didn't feel your body like that, you would experience that.
Yeah.
So and I always, if I had to give one piece of wisdom that worked for me, I think a lot of us have been on different diets or cleanses or whatever you call it. And we're in the old school mindset, like we're going to start Monday. So what we'll do is, go to Taco Bell or order in pizza or like kind of almost a lot of us have, BED, binge eating disorders, or, we've struggled with that. So we kind of like go all out for a couple days or a weekend before we're supposed to start. I think that's one of the worst things you can do when you're starting a GLP
Yeah.
because your body takes time to digest that. So you're literally putting into your body, which is the worst type of foods, even on Eli Lilly's website and on their, they say avoid fatty, greasy foods because that will literally be like the worst thing you could put for food wise for side effects.
Okay. And so your diet has changed a little bit in ways that you can help kind of counteract those side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for the most part, we've always, I know that this is such a stigma now, this word clean, eating clean, right? What food
Yeah.
makes it clean? Okay, we've always been less processed typed food people, eating on the outside of the grocery store, especially when we lived in Europe. That was very common. But what has changed, especially in America, is our convenience foods and
Mhm.
the convenience options. And while depending on where you're living, there are better options, but most places, convenience foods are high fat, high grease, fried. So I think getting on the go options, the only thing that's really changed for me is recognizing that it takes just as long for me to have gotten a rotisserie chicken, chopped it up, put it in a salad kit, called it a day than it does to go out, buy something so you don't have to cook and come back, you
That
know?
makes
So a little bit of
change.
mindset change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear a little bit about I saw you talked a lot about gym confidence and that really resonated with me. I remember being a kid and trying to go to like workout gym classes and feeling super intimidated and also not knowing what to do in the gym and it's really something that is a struggle and so I want to hear how kind of you've approached it and how you kind of got in there and started lifting.
Sure. So I think the best thing that you can do if you have never been to a gym is first of all, just like you did for your health for GLP-1, ask for help. The worst thing you can do is go in there and do something and injure yourself because your
Yeah.
form isn't correct. And so many of us don't have that. And even myself. So coming from teaching people the correct form, that's literally was my job, to being a
Yeah.
group fitness instructor, being out of the gym for a year because of like recovery, I had lost that confidence in myself even. Thankfully, my best friend is also a personal trainer. So I asked her, I said, "Can you come walk me through the gym? I want you to walk me through every single machine that makes me uncomfortable. I want you to be there with me." So she did. I was like, "All right, can you watch my form here? Tell me how I do this. What's this machine even do?" So even if you don't have a best friend who's a personal trainer, the gym does. Okay. And it's worth that investment. But I would say grab a friend and do it as a group
Yeah.
walkthrough. They're happy to do it. And actually, a lot of gyms will do that first one for free. It's
Okay.
something not a lot of people know of because they want to get you hooked, right? To introduce to the
Yeah.
personal trainer. But I think that there's such a power in going with somebody else because now it's not, you're not alone. You don't feel like if you do something wrong, all eyes are on you. You make fun of it.
Yeah.
I think there's confidence in numbers, so grab your friend, grab somebody who you're comfortable with, and just be like, "Hey, will you walk through this with me?" Even if they're not doing it, like, just having them there is helpful.
Definitely.
So, that's what I would say, and then also once you figure out but even before you get to that step, let's say you're comfortable going and walking on a treadmill, or you're comfortable going just checking in and going on a bike. Start there. And once you are like, "Okay, you know what? I feel better about this. Now I wanna go on to the next thing." Like, basically start where you are comfortable with and then push outside your comfort zone slowly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were training other people, but it took extra confidence to do it yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, when you don't recognize yourself anymore, when you have had a lot of self-doubt for so long, we're our own worst critics,
Yeah.
and one of the things my friend said, she goes, "You know so much more than you think you do."
Yeah.
And And I
You trained
think
in the military. You definitely do.
and I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah," but again, in my head, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, you can doubt yourself." And I've actually had other group fitness instructors message me and tell me that they stopped teaching group fitness classes because they gained weight and they didn't want people to look at them in the front and feel like they weren't qualified. And I said, if anything, in my personal opinion, I think it's opposite because now you're relatable. They're
You
seeing
know.
somebody who looks like most people in your class and that they can do it, you can do it, you
Yeah.
know? But
Completely.
so often we just disqualify ourselves unnecessarily.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit about being a mom on a GLP-1. I know there are a lot of people who are postpartum that are thinking about taking GLP-1s. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about what you would say to a mom thinking about taking a GLP-1?
Yeah, I would say I think so I have 2 kids, 2 young kids. I have a almost 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. That first part when you're in the younger stage, when you're in the newborn stage, the toddler stage, life is extremely difficult, and I think you're just trying to survive,
Mhm.
trying to make schedules work, and as they get older, yes, some things get easier, but what starts to happen is your schedules change, and there's never unless you make time for you, there's never gonna be time for you. So if you and I know this is such a cliche saying, but it is so true that you are worth it to prioritize yourself. You are worth it. And honestly, if you're taking care of yourself, you're able to take care of your family better. But
Yeah,
so often we feel guilt. And again, we have mom shame and guilt that we're taking time away. And even my daughter, she's going to be 5, but you know what? If I go leave,
yeah,
it's been twofold. There's been 2 things to this. When I go leave for a walk run,
yeah.
now she sees me do it, and guess what? She wants to come with me, and she's
I
running
saw some videos of
5Ks
you
with me
guys doing
now.
it together, and I was so
Yeah!
excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's doing that with me now, but at the same time, with the flip side, there are a lot of times that she will get really sad that I'm going to go leave for an hour to go work out, and
yeah,
I have to still, to this day, I have to work through that in my head, like, "It's okay, you can do this, like, you're gonna feel better after it's okay for 1 hour, it's okay."
yeah,
So, give yourself permission to take care of yourself, whether that means going outside for a walk, and even if you're not ready to start a GLP-1 now, or there are things that you can do for your mental and fitness space that are good, even if that means like, when I started this journey, I literally walked for 10 minutes, that's all I could do.
yeah,
So, take 10 minutes after dinner, go get some fresh air, and, like, you deserve that, and that can be a catapult to something in the future that you can't even see right now.
that makes sense. And as someone who is online, what do you do when you see all that, like, fake news out there? Because there's a lot of it about GLP-1s. I feel like you open
Yeah.
Instagram every day and it's something else, and I will say, before you answer my question, I did just see a really good video where someone made, like, a hook being, like, talking about some side effects, and it was actually the side effects of Advil, and they were like,
Mm,
"What is in the small print?" And so I just was curious to hear, how do you handle kind of all that fake news? And there's also
yeah,
new news, some of it's not fake, like Eli
I
Lilly adding hair loss. How do you approach all of that?
yeah, so I think I have a different perspective maybe than some people. I consider myself a quote unquote crunchy type granola-y person, right? Which is why it took me over a year to start because I was very skeptical.
Mhm.
Yes, I was going to a provider, but I'm also, like, into holistic stuff, so I like to balance the 2. So I did a lot of research, a lot. What helped me was recognizing that a GLP-1 is a naturally occurring hormone in our body already. So I didn't realize that. That was something that I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I looked at how our body processes it and why this is effective, and so that was helpful for me. I think it's important to do research on both sides. I think expect and not necessarily just on social media because the algorithm will push whichever narrative you're looking at.
Yeah.
So, I did go on, like, DuckDuckGo and look at different articles and research. I talked to people online that was on it, that were real people, not just, like, I think, you know what I'm saying. You can see who's being genuine, who's
Yeah.
not. Like, are they just trying to sell you something or are they actually documenting their journey?
Yeah. How did you find those people? Just through
Yeah.
Instagram?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's where it started was Instagram. So I do think that I think no matter what you are doing, you should look into it, research it, feel comfortable
Yeah.
with it because it's your body and you wanna feel comfortable, but at the same time, it's important to talk to your provider and they can answer, like, detailed questions because some of the studies that are out there, again, they're linked to a lot of people who have had type 2 diabetes who are already dispositioned for side effects that you might see or read about or risk factors that or even people who are obese, right? There's over like at least 13 obesity related cancers out there. Like I knew that that was 100% a fact. I
Mhm.
knew that my lab work was trending that way.
Yep.
So for me, the risk that were associated with it because I didn't have, different risk factors and taking this medication beforehand in my health that I knew I was headed for a for sure reality and negative effects. So for me, that's kind of how I balanced it. And then I also really look at online I look at, to your point, hooks. So with people who don't know what hooks are, those are things that are going to capture your attention when you're watching a video and they want me to watch their video. So if it's a fear, if it's putting fear into somebody, then I immediately am a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
I have friends who are on this pay or on these outlets. The media has actually taken their videos and they have put them into articles without their permission and picked and choose words and what they're saying and skewed them. So I would just say be really aware of your source and how credible it is. And are they just trying to get you to read their article or not?
Thank you. I have 2 last questions, and
Mhm.
one is I wanna hear some more of your wins, and if I saw one that really resonated with me that maybe you could share with everyone about jeans and the dryer.
Yes. Yes. So I have never been a girl, like truly everything I owned was dried. I would have clothes hanging on chairs, clothes hanging outside, clothes hanging in the kitchen. I mean, everywhere because I was like, I am not putting any piece of clothing in the dryer that it would shrink a little bit or be
Yeah,
form fitting at all.
yeah.
And for the first time ever, I threw my jeans in the dryer because I wanted them to be a little tighter, which is just crazy to me. So, yeah, that was definitely a not scale victory for sure.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And my last question, it has been so wonderful having you on, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think for people who are just starting their GLP-1 journey, what is one piece of advice that you would share with them?
I would say start small, meaning take one thing at a time that you can do and focus on. So you're going to hear eat more protein and work out and build a muscle and take your supplements and do electrolytes. You're going to hear all of these things. And it's a lot, especially for somebody who does not have a health and wellness background or hasn't even been maybe on a fitness journey ever. So, what's one thing that you can do? So, even for myself, with my background, it was going for a 10-minute walk a day. I did that for months. So, I
Yeah,
didn't change my eating habits. I didn't add any new supplements. I literally did one thing at a time because doing any more than that can be overwhelming and it won't be sustainable.
yeah.
So, pick one thing that you can do. And even like if you have an Apple Watch or on your phone or whatever, let's say you're already walking 6,000 steps a day. Can you do 7,000 for a week or a month? Like maybe that's your goal. So, what's a small increase that you can do that's not overwhelming?
I love that. And now you can be like Karlie and you're taking steps. I saw you at the airport before your flight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Small
Absolutely.
will lead to big progress. And I think you said a really impactful thing earlier about like food and just changing your mindset. You can go and get the fried chicken or the easy meal, or you can go get a rotisserie chicken and cut it up and put it in your salad. And I think you're right. It's about changing everything slightly and small and at once because, especially online, you can be overwhelmed by, as you were just saying, protein.
Hmm.
Go lift weights, do this, do that, but one small change at a time. So, thank you so much. All of this was so relatable, and I'm sure it will help positively impact someone else's journey. So, thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having me. It was such a blast. And
Of
thank you for all
course.
your deep.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Metabolism Diaries. And if you liked it, hit follow, subscribe, or whatever platform you're on. Send us a like and a comment. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have a suggestion of who should be on the podcast next, let me know. See you guys next time.